Hello, friends. We always try to share the most important pieces of history with you so that you can enjoy them and learn something valuable along the way. In this video, you will discover the chilling mystery behind what truly happened at the Dyatlov Pass in 1959. A disappearance so strange, even today, experts cannot fully explain it. So let's step into the heart of this legendary story and uncover the truth that still echoes through the frozen Ural Mountains. Before diving into the story, let me ask you something that might haunt your mind long after this video ends. If you were deep in a frozen wilderness, miles from civilization, and something in the night terrified you so much that you cut open your tent from the inside to escape, what do you think that something would be? Comment below. I'd love to read your theories. And if you want more mysteries like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Now let's begin. The wind had been screaming across the northern Ural Mountains for thousands of years, carving out white deserts of snow and ice where human footsteps rarely dared to tread. Locals said the mountains had their own voice, a long, low howl that could enter a man's bones and whisper warnings only the wise understood. The Mansi tribesmen called one particular mountain slope Kholat Syakhl, meaning dead mountain. Not because people died there often, but because nothing, no animals, no vegetation, no life seemed to belong on that barren land. Yet in late January of 1959, 9 young hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk set out toward that very mountain, laughing, singing, and dreaming of adventure. They had no idea that the path they walked would one day be named after them, the Dyatlov Pass, nor that their mysterious fate would puzzle the world for over 6 decades. Igor Dyatlov, the leader, was only 23, but carried the discipline of someone twice his age. Friends said Igor had a compass in his soul, an unshakable sense of direction, not just through the wilderness, but through life itself. Behind him trekked his trusted team, Zina Kolmogorova, whose letters home were filled with warmth, Rustem Slobodin, the athlete, Yuri Doroshenko, fiercely brave, Lyudmila Dubinina, sharp-minded and bold, Yuri Krivonishenko, always joking, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, the quiet thinker, and Sasha Kolevatov, the group's calm observer. One man, however, did not match the rest, an older hiker with a mysterious past. Semyon Zolotaryov, a decorated veteran whose wartime scars ran deeper than anyone knew. His presence would later spark endless theories. On January 27th, they took their first steps into the snow-covered isolation of the northern Urals. Their breaths formed white clouds in the frigid air as the days grew colder, dropping to temperatures capable of freezing exposed skin in minutes. Yet their diaries were full of jokes, optimism, and playful banter. They posed for photos, smiling with frost clinging to their eyelashes, unaware that these would be the last images the world would ever see of them alive. But as the terrain became harsher, an invisible shift crept into the story, a turn that none of them could feel. Yet history would never forget. The trail they followed was used long ago by hunters and reindeer herders. But during winter, the landscape swallowed all paths. Even compasses struggled. Winds sculpted the ground into silent ridges, hiding dangers beneath. At night, the sky glowed with ribbons of green aurora, beautiful, but eerie, like the heavens were watching. On February 1st, they reached the slopes of the treacherous Kholat Syakhl. A storm was forming, slow, heavy and patient. The kind of storm that could play tricks on the mind, turning every shadow into a threat. Igor decided they would camp on the slope instead of descending into the safer forested valley below. Why he made this choice, no one knows. Maybe it was for training, maybe it was for time, maybe it was something else entirely. But that night, the Ural Mountains did not sleep. Something moved across the snow. Something the hikers heard or felt enough to make them do the unthinkable. Hours later, rescuers would find their tent slashed open from the inside, footprints scattered down the mountain, and bodies lying in positions that defied all logic. Yet at this moment in the story, on the night of February 1st, the group sat inside their tent, writing in their journals, boiling water, laughing at Krivonyshenko's jokes. Outside, the wind pressed violently against the fabric, making the tent tremble like it was alive. Snow drummed against the canvas, and then somewhere far off, a sound echoed a sound no one could identify. A howl that wasn't quite wind. A vibration that didn't feel like thunder. A presence that didn't belong to the mountain. If any of them sensed fear, they didn't write it down. But when Lyudmila zipped her notebook shut and blew out the lantern for the night, she unknowingly sealed history's most chilling unanswered chapter. This was the last night anyone would ever see them alive. And as the wind rose, the mountain waited. The next morning, February 2nd, the storm had fully claimed Kholat Syakhl. Snow fell like white sand, thick and unrelenting. The group never returned to their university, and by February 20th, when their families grew worried, a search party was formed. The first team to arrive was local hikers, hunters, and soldiers, combing through the treacherous slopes with ropes and lanterns. What they found first was eerie in the most ordinary sense, and the tent was ripped open, flaps fluttering like frozen wings, lying half collapsed on the snow. Footprints led away from it, some barefoot, some wearing only socks. No one left in a hurry leaves a clear trail, yet the hikers' paths split in different directions, as if panic had made each person go their own way. Inside the tent lay belongings scattered in chaos. Backpacks, a stove, unfinished journals, a pair of skis. Everything left behind as if abandoned in fear. As rescuers followed the tracks, the horror deepened. Some bodies were discovered miles from the tent, in positions so unnatural it seemed almost as if they had been thrown or fled blindly. The first two bodies were found near a small pine forest, partially dressed, strangely calm in posture, lying as if asleep. But soon after, more were discovered in positions that defied all rational explanation. One was missing her tongue. Another had severe chest trauma, but no external wounds. It was as though an invisible force had struck them down. The official Soviet investigation at the time called it an unknown compelling force. Yet that explanation only deepened the mystery. Experts would later debate possibilities endlessly. Avalanche, military tests, infrasound-induced panic, yet none could satisfactorily explain all the details. The deaths were not uniform, the injuries inconsistent, the behavior of the hikers unexplainable. Some had cut their own clothing to escape the tent. Others had walked barefoot in deep snow. One body was even found under 8 feet of snow, a distance impossible to cover in that terrain alone. Eyewitness accounts from locals in nearby villages added another layer of strangeness. Some claimed to have seen strange glowing orbs in the night sky, moving with deliberate intent. Others described hearing unexplained sounds, loud bangs, high-pitched whistles, footsteps crunching through snow, even though no one was supposed to be there. The KGB files, eventually declassified, hinted at secret military tests nearby. Yet nothing official connected the incident to any weapon or experiment. Even the victims' own diaries offered haunting glimpses into their last hours. Igor had written, "The snow is heavier than I imagined. We must be careful." Rustem had added, "The wind speaks tonight. It feels alive." Lyudmila's notes were more abstract. "There is something beyond the mountains, something waiting." These phrases, innocuous on first glance, would later fuel theories of paranormal activity or extraterrestrial encounters. And yet, despite the supernatural speculation, there were details rooted in the grim reality of winter survival. Temperatures that week reached minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit, and hypothermia could easily set in within minutes. Frostbite and confusion are known to make people behave irrationally. But would hypothermia alone explain why some of the hikers tore off their clothing in sub-zero temperatures? Why were there signs of high-force trauma on some bodies? Why had the tent been cut open from the inside rather than the outside, as would be expected if they fled normally? The rescue teams combed every ridge, every tree line, yet the bodies were found scattered in a pattern that made no logical sense. 3 bodies were discovered months later, hidden deeper in a ravine, their positions even more disturbing. They had injuries so severe that internal organs were damaged without external trauma injuries, resembling those of a car crash, not exposure to the elements. Yet there was no evidence of another human or animal attack. The mystery grew even more complex with forensic evidence. Radiation traces were found on some clothing, though not in quantities immediately lethal. Some shoes were shredded, suggesting intense physical struggle, while other items remained completely intact. Investigators could not reconcile the facts. The hikers were extremely experienced, physically fit, and cautious. There were no signs of robbery or assault. And the mountain itself, usually silent and indifferent, seemed to have played a role in their fate. As news of the incident spread, stories became legend. The Dyatlov Pass Incident became a subject of books, documentaries, and conspiracy theories. Soviet authorities remained tight-lipped, leading to decades of speculation. Was it an avalanche? Some experts argued yes, citing slope angles and snow accumulation. But skeptics countered. The tent was partially intact. The terrain did not show expected avalanche signs, and the hikers' movement suggested something caused panic before the disaster. Military involvement? Theories emerged that missile tests or secret experiments could have been responsible. Witnesses recalled strange flashes in the sky, and the proximity of the Soviet military's test areas added weight to the claim. But no documentation ever fully confirmed such a scenario. Other theories ranged from infrasound-induced panic to secret weapon experiments, yet none fully explained the injuries, the behavioral anomalies, or the bizarre sequence of events. For decades, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remained one of the coldest, most perplexing mysteries of the 20th century, a story where logic seemed powerless against the unknown. To this day, researchers return to Kholat Syakhl to investigate. New forensic techniques, satellite imagery, and avalanche modeling have shed some light, but the complete truth remains elusive. Each year, new theories arise, a silent testament to the enduring human desire to solve a puzzle that refuses to yield its secrets. And yet, at the heart of the story is not speculation, but humanity. 9 young adventurers full of life, courage, and dreams whose last journey became a cautionary tale of nature's unpredictability and of forces seen and unseen that challenge the limits of human understanding. The mountain continues to stand, silent, white and unyielding, waiting for no one, remembering everything. As spring approached in 1959, the snow began to melt across the Urals, but the echoes of that fatal winter lingered. Investigators returned to the site repeatedly, combing every inch of the mountain. They examined the torn tent, the footprints frozen in time, and the scattered gear that had once belonged to 9 young hikers. Every clue was a puzzle piece in a jigsaw with missing sections, and the more they uncovered, the deeper the mystery grew. One by one, the forensic details were revealed. The first bodies found near the forest had only minor injuries, their faces peaceful, as if asleep, yet they were underdressed for the sub-zero temperatures. The later found bodies, in the ravine, bore severe internal trauma, but the surrounding snow and earth showed no evidence of an external blow. This anomaly baffled scientists. How could such force occur without visible impact? Was it a natural phenomenon or something beyond comprehension? Witness accounts added layers of fear and wonder. Villagers recalled strange lights in the sky, bright, unidentifiable glows moving silently across the horizon. Some said they saw figures on the slopes that disappeared when approached. The hikers themselves had hinted at unseen forces in their diaries. Igor's last note warned of unusual snowdrifts forming shapes, like hands reaching out, while Lyudmila wrote, "It feels like we are being watched, and the wind is alive with whispers." The official Soviet report concluded only that a compelling natural force caused the tragedy, but no natural explanation. Avalanche, hypothermia, or misadventure fully accounted for the torn tent, the partially stripped bodies, the unusual injuries, or the bizarre path the hikers took as they fled into the night. Over time, new theories emerged. Secret military tests, infrasound panic, Yeti attacks, or extraterrestrial involvement. Each theory had supporters and detractors, yet none could provide certainty. Modern analyses decades later have attempted to solve the puzzle scientifically. Avalanche models show that a small, rare snow pressure release could have caused panic without leaving large physical traces. Yet this does not explain why some victims were buried far away, or why some had injuries resembling high-force impact. Radiation traces on clothing remain unexplained. And yet, the story of Dyatlov Pass refuses to rest. It persists as a chilling reminder of the unknown dangers hidden within nature's beauty and the thin line separating adventure from disaster. The legacy of those 9 hikers remains alive not only in reports and documentaries, but in the minds of all who dare to venture into the wild. Their courage and curiosity drove them into the mountains. Their fate, a stark warning of forces, physical, psychological, and possibly supernatural, that humans cannot always comprehend. The mountain stands as both a silent grave and an eternal monument. Hikers returning decades later describe feeling an inexplicable tension, a whisper of wind carrying the memory of those lost. And so the Dyatlov Pass Incident is more than a historical mystery. It is a story of human ambition, the unpredictable power of nature, and the fragile boundary between life and death in a world where some questions may never have answers. The frozen slopes of Kholat Syakhl continue to guard their secrets, daring anyone to uncover the truth, while the world watches and wonders, remembering 9 bright lives extinguished too soon, their voices carried forever in the wind. Even today, as snow blankets the Urals, visitors can see remnants of that fateful expedition. Rusted fragments of gear, worn paths across ridges, and the faint traces of footprints hardened in ice. And if one listens closely, they might hear a whisper through the mountains, the echo of laughter, a journal entry, or perhaps a warning. Nature and history converge here, keeping the Dyatlov Pass story alive, haunting, and eternally enigmatic. The mountain remains indifferent. The wind continues to howl, and the mystery endures. One can only stand at the edge of the pass, look into the frozen void, and ask, what truly happened that night in 1959?